This is a quick intro on OKRs. OKRs are goal setting framework that we use to achieve certain objectives that we have. And so OKR stands for objectives and key results. Objectives, think about them as what is it that you want to achieve. And key results basically indicates measurable outcomes that will help achieve those objectives. So this goal setting framework is something that is used most recently and popularized by Google and John Doerr. And let's look at few things to keep in mind, a checklist of things to keep in mind for every OKR item that we plan for. So the number one thing is focus. If we pick many objectives that we will work on and we fund them half and not really fund those objectives, and we don't finish those objectives, that doesn't make any sense. So it's probably best to focus on the top few objectives that have the most impact to the business and list out in detail key results for them. So pick few instead of picking a lot and not doing any one of them well. So that is the most important part of an effective OKR program, which is a focus on the most important objectives, right? Key results need to have certain characteristics. So first, every objective should be tied to a key result. A key result is an outcome, right? It's not output. So if we spend time creating output that doesn't lead to outcomes, then it makes no sense. Outcomes are basically business impact or value to the customer. Output is basically you did something, but that maybe did not translate to the outcome. We can say output is more under our control, outcomes is not. But that's where the trick is. We need to use a goal setting framework that enables us to get better at forecasting. So tying the output to the outcome is the key exercise why OKR is very effective. So focus on fewer objectives and focus on diving deep into key results, making sure that your key results are number one, measurable. You need to have something that is in numbers. It's aspirational. You don't want to hit all of your OKRs at the end of the quarter and not really aspire for something even larger. You want to make sure that it's important initiatives, not a laundry list of everything. And so measurable, something that is tied to a number, something that is aspirational that you would aspire to build, and something that is important and in the order of impact. So that's number one thing to validate when you come up with an OKR item, which is, do you and your team have the right sense of focus? Typically keep it to less than 3 focus areas. The number two, once you've identified the focus areas and the key results that you want to tie to those outcomes, you want to start effective planning, right? And planning involves 4 different things that you would want to do as part of this checklist. When you plan, you would want to plan with the resources that you have today. It may not be an ideal plan, but that's the plan that you would want to be ready for. Number 2, let's call it plan B. Plan B is a plan that you can actually implement right away. Then you need to have a plan A. Plan A is an ideal plan. It is a plan that has a set of asks that you have, right? You may ask for more people. You may ask for more commitment from partner teams. There may be a lot of asks that you have. And that is ideal plan based on ideal capacity. So that needs to have clear asks, which says, I need X number of people by this date, and I need these teams to do this work and prioritize these initiatives. So that is your plan A. You start with plan A saying, hey, this is my ideal scenario for having maximum business impact, and these are my asks. But you also need to have plan B ready, which is something that you can fall on to and implement right away in case plan A doesn't succeed, or let's say the leadership decides that all of your asks may not be able to be fulfilled. So you need to have an effective plan B and a plan A. A plan A is an ideal plan. Plan B is with resources that you have today. Once you've done that within your team, you need to also start thinking of your dependencies. Maybe if you want to build a feature, you might need design dependencies. You might have product requirements. You might have UX research. You might have dependencies on internationalization. There could be a whole host of dependencies that you might need to get buy-in from. So identifying dependencies and getting those prior alignment is very important. If you don't get prior alignment with all of your dependencies, your plan is invalid. The entire plan is useless if your prior alignments doesn't exist with your dependencies. Some of these dependencies could also be in your clear asks, saying, hey, for my plan to work, these are my asks for my partner teams and dependencies. So that's the third part. Clear dependencies identified, clear alignment, either sought prior or asked as part of the plan. So you definitely want to lean towards getting those dependencies aligned prior and only bring up at the OKR meeting what things that the leadership team can do to help move that plan forward. And then the final part of planning is sequencing. You would want to find out bottlenecks. If you don't find out bottlenecks or don't do any sequencing, you'll quickly realize that at point A, you might have bottlenecks in engineering. But 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now, there may be bottlenecks in product or design or some downstream team. So if you don't sequence it out and if you don't lay it out at a high level, your entire plan has no validity. So focus on few things, plan out your ideal capacity, plan out your current capacity, identify dependencies, sequence out your task, and find out bottlenecks. Once you have identified focus and have an effective plan, they need to balance, and this is the most important part of the checklist. You need to balance for things that are not measurable as well. There may be aspirations that individual members in your team have about their growth. There may be certain projects that you want to prioritize for technical debt that you've been incurring. The quality of work is just getting worse and worse in your team. The process might be going out of the whack. So you might want to implement certain process improvement areas. You might want to make sure that you're focusing on the quality aspects of your product as well, and things that are not measurable, right? And you have a way to always trade off certain deliverables by time, quality, and resources. By that you can say, I could take longer to do it, or I could ship with few tech debt involved, or I could use more people, or if I have less people, it's going to take longer time. So balancing out people's aspirations is pretty critical, and also immeasurables like product process changes, things that are not working well within the team. It's evident from your EVS reports. It's very important to hear the employee voice, improve the process as well. So that's the third and the final part. The OKR needs to be a balanced plan. It should be a holistic. It should also look into the things that you might not need to deliver right away in this quarter, but also long-term aspects of what things you need to do now so that in a year from now or 6 months from now, the quality of your product improves. So that is the balance part. Once you've done this, you now have an effective OKR list. At the end of it, implement it and then reflect at the end of the quarter. Did you actually achieve the key outcomes that you intended to achieve? And then label on a weekly basis some way, whether you're trending red, green, or yellow. Red is basically, you're trending to not even finishing 70%. Yellow is basically up above 70%, but not really hitting 100%. Green is, it's 100% and above. You're beating expectations, right? So reflecting at the end of the quarter is very important for an OKR program. But remember a few things. Outcomes is the most important part for focus. Fewer things, plan with dependencies, identify bottlenecks early, have a clear set of asks, trend on a weekly basis, but have things that are aspirational. Have things that the team aspires to build. And reflect regularly every quarter, learn from what mistakes you've done, and iterate so that your OKR planning gets better and better over time. Thanks.